And how are the translations going? I'll try to speak very slowly, which is not my normal pace, but that might help things. We'll see. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for being here. For those who didn't watch the Dries Keynote in Vienna, that was only just over a month ago. So rather than trying to do that all again from scratch, we decided that we would focus a little more on a casual Q&A session. So here we are.
Yeah, awesome. Good morning, Japan. I'm excited to be here.
So you arrived last week.
I did.
And you did a bit of tourism, sightseeing. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite thing you did this week?
Ooh, so the last few days we've been to Tokyo, Osaka, Himeji Castle. I don't know, it's hard to pick one thing, to be honest, but I just love Japan in general. I've been in Japan, I think, 4 or 5 times in my life. And I just love the people. I think the people here are beautiful, warm people. I love the food, I love the history, I love the culture. I would say my highlights usually tend to be a little bit, you know, the smaller places, maybe off the kind of beaten path where all the tourists are. Yeah, I tend to really like those kinds of things. So I don't know, I can't pick one, to be honest, sorry.
Very diplomatic. Okay, another sort of personal question. So at the start of this year, you transitioned at Acquia from CTO, Chief Technology Officer and Chief Strategy Officer to become Executive Chairman. And the reason for that was you wanted to balance your time and focus on what matters most.
Yeah.
So what has that looked like the last year, and how has that been for you?
Yeah, so I guess maybe for context, I started Acquia 18 years ago, when I've dedicated 18 years of my life growing the company to where we are today, which is a sizable company. And to put that in perspective, my oldest son, I have 2 sons. My oldest son was born just after I started Acquia. And so what mattered most to me was spending more time with my family, as well as I wanted to spend more time on the Drupal project as well. And so I decided to evolve my role. I gave up all of the teams that I was running at Acquia to become the executive chair. And maybe not everybody knows what that means, but as a chair, you help manage the board of directors. But as an executive chair, with the emphasis on executive, it means you're still an employee at the company as well. So it's not just a board role. I'm still employed by Acquia. But it allowed me to rebalance my time. And so in the last 9 months, we've been traveling a little bit more, which was nice. I've been spending a little bit more time with my family and friends. So I've been able to do like special trips. Axel, my oldest son, he moved off to college, and so we were able to do like a father-son hike, which honestly in the last 18 years I've not been able to do. And then, as you know, because we work together quite a bit on Drupal CMS, I've also been able to spend more time on Drupal and dedicate more of my personal time on helping to reinvigorate, I think, Drupal. And so it's been great. For the most part, I actually really, really loved it. I will say it's been sometimes hard also to step back and to let go. And but and I'm still kind of coming to grips with that, even after 9 months, to kind of let other people run more of the company. At the same time, it's very healthy to get new eyes and new people, to run things as well. So yeah.
So you're not tempted to jump back in?
Sometimes. But then I think about all the other things I would have to give up again, and so I'm happy. Yeah, but it is an adjustment, like as you can imagine, after all these years. Yeah.
Saying no to meetings, that kind of thing?
Yes, actually, as a fun fact, people kept looping me back in, and so to actually remove myself from our executive leadership team Slack channel, for example. And so I'm like, I'm no longer going to be on this Slack channel because people keep pinging me or dragging me back into things. And so that has gotten better. It was an adjustment for me, and it was an adjustment for others as well. So, yeah.
Well, it's been great to have you on the Drupal project. So shifting focus to that. Everybody, well, most of you, I think, know what Drupal Canvas is. For those who don't, Drupal Canvas is a new experience builder type tool that will let you create landing pages and just gives a lot more visual-based control of display in Drupal, which has long been a struggle. And so Canvas aims to lower the barrier to Drupal adoption and kind of tries to shift our place in the market more toward the tools that things like Webflow and Squarespace offer, and make it easier for folks to deploy marketing-based websites on Drupal. But Drupal's strength typically, lately, has been more in the large-scale enterprise space, particularly government, where projects have consistency and sort of standardization requirements. How do you envision Canvas being deployed in those environments?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, like, I've talked to a lot of end users of Drupal. I always have, and I can tell you, like, it doesn't matter whether they have a small website or a small team or many websites and large teams. Consistently, people have told me, we need easier page builder. And so it's not like a small versus large kind of thing. Now, when you talk to the large customers, and actually I was at a meeting with the state of New York in the US, just like, I don't know, 7 weeks ago or 2 months ago, and they have 140 websites. So and they're large websites.
Is that all? Only 140?
Yeah, I know. And they told me they have over 300 people creating content, and they're very, very excited about Drupal Canvas. And they're already testing it, they're already prototyping things. But what matters for them, to answer your question, so I met with the head of digital, I met with the head of accessibility, and I met with the head of design, for example. They're at the state of New York, and the head of the head of accessibility, you know, he wants to enable all of the 300 plus content creators to use Drupal Canvas, but he wants everything that they build to be accessible. Or the head of design and UX, you know, she obviously wants to enable all 300 plus content creators, but she wants everything that they do to follow their brand guidelines and their design system. So what they are looking for is to not only be able to leverage the power of Drupal with structured content types and et cetera, but they also really want to be able to leverage a statewide design system and pre-vetted components that are known to be accessible. And they want the right governance model around these things so that they can give access to, you know, to Drupal Canvas and other Drupal tools in a way that makes sense. So that means, you know, people that aren't experts, they don't want them to be able to mess up the accessibility or mess up the design. But then on the other hand, for people that are experts, they also want to enable them to customize things, and they want to give those people the flexibility to kind of be more creative, let's say. And so what they're looking for is the ability to lock things down on the one hand, but on the other hand, to provide flexibility for those that know what they're doing, so to speak, as it relates to these things. And so that's kind of what they're looking for. And so I would say Drupal Canvas is really for everyone. And I'm actually very, very excited about it, because for 20 years, people have said Drupal is too hard to build pages with. And I think we're on the verge of changing that forever in a super meaningful way. And we've built Drupal Canvas in a way that preserves all the power and flexibility of Drupal. And I think it will be a great tool, you know, for small websites as well as large websites. So I think it's a very special moment in history. So.
I agree. I'm also very excited about it. If you haven't used it at all, I highly recommend that you do, because it actually makes building pages fun. I'm serious. So I guess on that note, something people might not know about Canvas is that it's essentially an Acquia investment almost entirely at this point. So can you walk us through the sort of strategic thinking that led Acquia to making that investment, and how it fits into Acquia's long-term strategy?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's probably two ways I can answer this. Like, one, when I started Acquia 18 years ago, I started it with the goal to help grow Drupal. Like, if you go back to the original announcement blog post, that was our mission. And the first thing we did actually was hire Gabor, who was sitting right there. And like we made zero money. The first thing we did is hire somebody to contribute to Drupal full-time. And Gabor has been contributing to Drupal full-time for 18 years. I mean, it's an incredible gift to the community. And it's not just Gabor. We now have 20 other people, or more than 20 people, contributing to Drupal all the time. And so the way we've managed that internally, so I used to run the office of the CTO or the Drupal acceleration team. We would give that team of full-time contributors the mission to go fix the most difficult, most important problems in the Drupal community. It's a little bit like the Navy SEALs of Drupal, if you want to think about it. And they would focus on things that maybe the community wouldn't naturally focus on, because it took too much effort or too big of an investment over too long of a time period. And so Drupal Canvas definitely fits that category. Like reimagining and rebuilding the page builder in Drupal is not a small task. So that's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that, about 18 months ago, we started building a new product at Acquia called Acquia Source. And we have not launched the product yet, but we started talking about it. We started building some brand awareness around it, but it's essentially Drupal as a service. And, we felt like for that product, that Drupal as a service product to be competitive, we also needed to make the page building experience better. And so I think we put like 20 people on this in the last 15, 16 months to go build a Drupal Canvas. And we've built it entirely in open source. And we've also built it in the open, meaning everybody can see what's going on, everybody can contribute to it, and many actually have, including like companies like Salsa Digital and Previous Next and others have been great contributors to it. So the strategic, to summarize my long answer, I'm sorry, is for Acquia to succeed, Drupal needs to be successful. And for Drupal to be successful, we want to focus on the most important things. And we want to make those better, we want to fix those things following open source principles. Like we want to contribute it all to open source and we want to make it better for everyone in the community. And so that's what we've been doing. It's a deep part of our DNA.
And Drupal Canvas obviously plays a really important role in Drupal CMS, the version 2 of which is coming out in January. So I guess we're sort of 18 months from the original announcement of Drupal CMS. How are you feeling about where we are now? And
I mean, I feel amazing about it. Like, honestly, I'm not sure if you saw that keynote, but the Drupal CMS, the Drupal Starshot keynote, where I launched this idea, where I walked up on stage and said, we need to basically put a person on the moon kind of equivalent with Drupal. I was pretty nervous walking up to the stage and making this bold kind of announcement. Like, let's reimagine what Drupal can be, and let's reimagine how we all work together, and let's do it with a sense of urgency and go do big things together. And it's not always easy to, I guess, create that momentum. And honestly, I feel very happy. I'm very inspired by the community and how so many people in the community have rallied and come together, and all of the great things that we've been able to do. From Drupal Canvas being one thing, but the Drupal AI initiative, site templates and marketplace. Like right now we have, 4 or 5 big initiatives that I consider to be going well, happening at the same time. And I think each of those initiatives has the potential to transform Drupal and to really re-accelerate Drupal. So this idea that we have 4 of those initiatives that individually could reinvigorate and re-accelerate Drupal is pretty amazing, because they have the option to compound, to basically all come together to really change the course. And of course, it's still early.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's still early in the sense like we haven't actually released Drupal Canvas yet. We haven't actually released the marketplace with site templates yet. The AI initiative has made releases, but there's still a lot of work to do there as well. But the signs are looking good, I think, There's a lot of great things happening. And so I'm very pleasantly surprised in many ways. And yeah, I'm very happy actually about the progress.
Do you think there's anything that stands out as like maybe the biggest success or the biggest surprise?
Ooh. I mean, I think, as I said, I think each of the initiatives, I think, have an opportunity to transform Drupal in slightly different ways. So like site templates and marketplace, I think, can really change the adoption curve of Drupal. Like it can bring thousands of people into the project. I think Drupal AI has the opportunity, I think AI is changing everything, and I think we have to lean into that, and so I think that has the opportunity to change everything. So I think, I don't know, I can't pick one thing, to be honest, yeah.
That's okay.
I guess I'm challenged with picking one thing.
On the flip side, do you think there are any areas where we could use some improvement or kind of maybe things we've not focused on as much that we should?
Yeah. Yes. Like one of the things that I think we need to get better at is like actually getting the word out. And I know we've purposely held back a little bit as well because we aren't ready. But like when I travel and I go to Drupal camps or I meet with people in the community, I see so much excitement about Drupal CMS broadly and the various initiatives individually. You go to Vienna, DrupalCon Vienna, there's standing room only sessions about Drupal CMS. I tried to get in a Canvas session, I couldn't get into the room. There's that many people. I tried to get into a Drupal AI session, I couldn't get into the room, which is great. And so like this excitement is so energizing, but then I'm outside of the Drupal world talking to people and they still have no idea of all of the great things that are happening with Drupal CMS. And so I think one of the biggest frustrations that I have is like, how do we get this message out to the millions of web developers out there that have looked at Drupal in the past, may have used Drupal in the past, but haven't gone back to Drupal, or they have an outdated view of what Drupal is. And so I know we're taking steps to change that. We hired a marketer with Ryan. We are working on promotional materials. We're revamping our website. So we're doing a lot of things. But I think once we have Drupal CMS 2.0, which will be, as you mentioned, our milestone release with Drupal Canvas out of the box, I think we need to be loud about it. You know, we need to scream it off the roofs, or whatever the expression is in English. And we need everybody to know about all the great things happening in Drupal. So that would be my one thing that I'd love to change. And I think, to be clear, I don't think it's just something that the Drupal Association or Ryan can do individually. Like, for this to happen, we need everybody in the community, all of you, to help with the promotion of Drupal and to help change the mindset of millions of people around the world.
I think there are a couple of things that Drupal CMS really needs to work well, those things being package manager, automatic updates, project browser. And those are things that we so far have not quite seen as much interest in from the community as far as pushing those things forward. Do you have any thoughts on how we might try to make that happen?
Yeah, I think I'm not surprised because a lot of the people that work with Drupal today and that contribute to Drupal today, they don't need those features, right? So like they're used to doing updates with, Composer update and what have you. And so sometimes it can be difficult for experts, let's say, that like to use power tools to put themselves in the shoes of a complete non-Drupal user that would love to have automatic updates and those kinds of things. I think, I don't know, it's hard. And I do think there's a lot of people that do care about these things, but then it also comes down to it being pretty hard to use. And like maybe as a side note, if I think about my own journey of contributing to Drupal, like I started Drupal and I just built it for myself. Like I was the one user of Drupal, and then I opened it up, I made Drupal available as open source, and then that attracted a lot of other developers. And then for years, we built Drupal kind of for developers, by developers, and I had no empathy with end users. I didn't really care, to be honest, at the time. And then as I matured in my journey, at some point I started feeling like, wow, the impact that Drupal has on so many people, it's kind of a big deal. And I started caring more and more about sort of non-developers as well. And I do think other people are going through that journey, like the way I went through my journey. And I think it's ultimately those people, I think, that may be interested in contributing to sort of the initiatives that aren't necessarily for developers, people that want more people to join Drupal and that want to make Drupal more accessible to others. But I actually think we have a lot of the building blocks in place now. Like, I don't think we're that far away from making automatic updates really good. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
You've mentioned site templates a few times.
Yeah.
Can you give us an update on the current status of, I guess, site templates in general in the marketplace?
Yeah, so the idea of a site template is basically a Drupal site out of the box, I would say. And so like you can select the site template, install it, and you get a Drupal site that solves a particular use case. And it comes with a look and feel as well. And so it's really a set of modules, configuration, maybe documentation, and hopefully a Drupal Canvas template. And it's an evolution of recipes. If you're familiar with recipes, like we built recipes in the last few years as a way to bundle modules and configuration. And then site templates really basically add, I would say, a Drupal Canvas theme as well as some demo content that's really good. And so that's really helpful because if you think about what it takes to configure Drupal, install a Drupal site and get to a functional Drupal site, it may take somebody weeks, to be honest, or days. Like even if you're an expert, it may take you days and weeks. And so imagine you're a complete newbie to Drupal, it's pretty daunting. We all know that the learning curve is pretty steep. And so this notion of a site template basically removes a lot of that learning curve. And I don't know, if you think about it as a marketing funnel, we probably get hundreds of thousands of people in at the top of the funnel, but then how many actually make it all the way to the bottom of the funnel? Like how many actually end up with a Drupal site and maybe even end up contributing back to Drupal? I don't know what the ratio is, but I'm willing to bet it's very, very small. And so the question is, how can you widen the bottom of the funnel so that all these people that come in want to try Drupal, many more end up with a Drupal site, and also many more end up contributing back to the project. And I think site templates can really help with that. Now, site templates are, I think, part of the solution. Like the other part is the marketplace. And so the marketplace, I mean, you all know what marketplaces are, but it's basically a place on Drupal.org where you can browse all of the available site templates, and you can discover the right site template for you. And that could depend on your use case, maybe it depends on the theme that you're after. Anyway, you could somehow find your way to the right site template, and then obviously we want to make it very easy for people to install it as well. Like ideally, we would be able to click a single button and people would have a working Drupal site using that site template. And it would be an incredible starting point for those people. It would literally save them days and days of work. So that's the vision, I would say. And the good news is, as you know, because, by the way, Pam has led a lot of the efforts around site templates. So thank you for that. We have the first site templates up and running. We also went through a big discovery exercise with the Drupal Association and Tiffany Ferris and Tim Lennon to figure out if we want to build a marketplace idea, and we said yes. So we're actively working on an MVP, minimum viable product version of the marketplace that we hope to launch sometime next year. And so we're also working with a lot of the Drupal Association partners to get them to help build more site templates, and we have about 10 to 15 different partners committed to helping to build the first site template. So we hope that sometime next year we'll have a basic marketplace with a whole bunch of site templates for people to discover, install, and get going with Drupal. And they will be hopefully installing Drupal CMS 2.0 with Drupal Canvas, and they would get all the great new things that we have implemented. So,
speaking of great new things we have implemented,
yeah.
Let's talk about AI.
All right.
What do you think is, because you've spoken a lot about Drupal's potential to leverage AI and kind of be a showcase for it. What are the most exciting potential sort of pieces, and what's your most, I guess, what's your vision for the world of the world of Drupal AI?
Well, let me first address kind of the vibes around AI, because I think it's a little sometimes polarizing. Maybe that's slightly too strong of a word. Maybe it's not. But like, just like everybody else, I feel sometimes mixed emotions about AI. You know, like literally in the same day, I can feel super excited, can also feel like, oh, this is a bit scary, or it doesn't feel right. But at the same time, I think it's hard to ignore how AI is taking the world by storm and how it's changing pretty much everything that we do. Like it's changing how people use websites, and it's also changing how people build websites, and it's changing how people create content. And so I think it would be a big mistake to ignore it. And as I argued in my keynote in Vienna, is like, I believe we have to lean into it. And I see, to answer your question, I see a lot of potential for Drupal AI. And I actually see a lot of potential specifically for AI in Drupal because Drupal has historically been relatively hard to use, I think it's fair to say. And I think AI has the potential to fix that. You know, AI can really help us overcome the weaknesses that we've had as a project. And at the same time, it can elevate our strengths too, like strengths like structure content, or our workflow capabilities, or our versioning capabilities, all of these things that we have. That's exactly the things that AI needs to do the things that AI does. So like when AI goes and builds a page and makes a mistake, and it will make mistakes, we can actually roll it back, and you know, all of these, or we can run it through our versioning system. So it's actually pretty special to think about the fact that AI can overcome our weaknesses, our learning, our technical learning curve, but it can also really take advantage of the strengths that we uniquely have as Drupal, because mind you, a lot of our competitors, they don't have the same capabilities in the same way that we have them, right? Like not every competitor has content versioning, as you know, but we do. And I think it's really critical capability for AI. So I think we have a unique opportunity with Drupal AI. And maybe I'll give you one example, and I'll try to tie it into Drupal Canvas, but like Drupal Canvas makes it so much easier to create pages. But if you actually look at how many clicks it takes to build a page, even though it is delightful, it could still be 200 clicks, you know, to build a whole page. And that's not a dig on the Drupal Canvas team. That's true for every page builder in the world. But then with Drupal AI, you can actually go from whatever, 200 or 300 clicks to like you generate the first version of your page with AI in, you know, seconds or a minute. And then you only have to do sort of the last mile, you know, like you have a pretty good starting point, and then you can tweak it to what you want it to be, and that could be maybe 30 clicks instead of 300 clicks. And so I think AI can be combined with everything that we do to accelerate and simplify what people can do.
Where do you think we are on the journey right now as far as actually getting that, like realizing that vision?
I think we're pretty close. So like what I demonstrated in DrupalCon Vienna is actually, you know, Drupal AI building a complete landing page and multiple landing pages with a single prompt. We also showed something called the Context Control Center. If some of you may remember that, but it's basically like your project's MD file or Cloud MD file if you're using Cloud Code, which is not something that I've seen in other competing solutions. So I think we have a lot of the building blocks. Now, is it perfect? Not always, but it's rapidly getting better. And so I think we have, I think we're actually in a much better place than many of our competitors. But we're not done. Like, you know, there's a lot of change still happening, and a lot of great work happening as well. So, but like we didn't touch upon it, but we have the Drupal AI initiative, which is an initiative that we created, I don't even know, like 9 months ago maybe, maybe less. And we have, I think, about 25 partners now that have contributed money as well as dedicated resources. So depending on the size of their organization, we ask them to contribute a half-time person or a full-time person. So we have a whole group of people in the initiative helping to make these things better and other things. And on top of that, we have a lot of other contributors that are not formally part of the Drupal AI initiative, but like if you go to the Drupal AI Slack, like I think there's like 1,300 people in the Slack channel. People curious about Drupal AI, people experimenting with it, people contributing to it. So there's a lot of great things happening, I think, in Drupal AI.
How do you see the AI revolution shaping the Drupal agency space? I think probably a lot of people in here are wondering that themselves. And I know you've actually written a bit about it, and I know you've thought a lot about it.
Well, I wrote a blog post about it. It was called, I forgot what it was called, but the unbundling or something of Drupal agencies or agencies. So you can check it out. It's a long piece. And I've been thinking about it because I actually care deeply about the agencies.
So do we.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, the agencies, just FYI, I think 70% of all the contribution to Drupal comes from people working at agencies. And so, you know, I don't just care about it because of that reason, but a lot of the innovation in Drupal comes from employees working at agencies. So I think I really want the agencies to succeed, you know, because I think it's important for Drupal. But it is tricky right now because obviously, you know, the agency model is also being disrupted because historically, I would say agencies have sold a bundle of stuff. Planning, maybe strategy, project management, implementation, all the things, and that's what they would sell to their customers. And now the implementation work is being commoditized. Like AI is making it much faster to do implementation. And so like a lot of agencies, they would sell time and material, like they would bill by the hour. And so if an AI tool can do something in an hour, what otherwise the developer might take, you know, 10 hours or whatever, it kind of disrupts their business model, right? And so, that's what this blog post is about. And I obviously don't have the answers per se, but I wrote about how agencies need to kind of move up the stack as one path, or how they need to embrace new concepts like orchestration and automation, and I showed that a little bit in the Dries note and wrote about that as well. And so I think agencies will have to evolve. And I also don't think this is new. I think even like just the SaaS solutions that emerged in the last 15 years or something have kind of already disrupted the agency work a little bit. And I think in a way, AI is accelerating sort of that disruption, forcing agencies to evolve and move up the stack. And it's particularly hard, I think, for Drupal agencies that like there's a set of agencies that are basically platform experts, Drupal experts. Like people hire them because they know Drupal inside out, you know, and they don't do much other than that. Like basically implementation agencies. And I think these are probably hit or will get hit the hardest because that is a specific part that is getting disrupted the most. So I think you're off in a better place if not only do you do Drupal implementation, but you can also do a little bit of the strategy and the design work, maybe some of the content production work, that kind of stuff. So I don't know, interesting time. I don't have the answers, but I think what's happening now with the AI initiative is that agencies are recognizing that they need to evolve. And the reason why some of these agencies are joining the AI initiative and they're putting some of their best people into the Drupal AI initiative, and they're putting some of their money into the initiative as well, is because they like a lot of them believe it will allow them to transform their agency from the inside out. By putting some of your best people on the Drupal AI initiative, they're on the forefront of the transformation, and they can take that knowledge back into their agency and share it with the other employees in the agency. So it's one way that you can consider using to be ready for this storm and to evolve your agency. You know, it's like in a DrupalCon Vienna, I said, you know, we're having there's this huge storm coming that's changing everything, and then I made the analogy that like bison, you know, like bison, the animals, they historically have run into the storm when there is a storm. And it's kind of an interesting analogy because, like, you could think, animals like bison, that they would run away from the storm. And the truth is they actually try to run into the storm. And the reason is very simple. It's that it's the way to get through the storm the quickest. And so my advice to a lot of agencies and the Drupal project in general is to, like, let's lean into the storm. Let's run into it. Let's be part of that transformation.
How do you see AI shaping the broader web space? I mean, I think especially with the rise of AI browsers and sort of ChatGPT becoming the default search engine for many people, obviously the traditional website visitation model is kind of
changing. Yeah, like a lot of people, I think was it almost 70% of people now get their, when they do a Google search, 70% of the time people get their answer from instant answers, I think it's called on Google. So basically, those people, they don't always tend to go to the website. So that's a big change. And actually, at Acquia, we see it, a lot of our customers, their traffic is down, which is interesting, and it's because of AI. And sometimes it will pressure their business models, And actually, we see it at Acquia as well with our own website. We have less traffic. Now, what we do see is that our conversion rate is higher. So when people come to our website, they convert more. And it's almost like by the time they decide to leave the AI chatbot, they have more conviction to visit your website or to do something on your website. So it is changing things, and I think it's kind of fascinating because it's kind of breaking the traditional marketing funnel, like, that we've had the last, 25 years or something, where people try to drive traffic to your website and convert them, and people play all kinds of tricks to do so. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. Now, I don't think websites will go away, just to be really clear. I think websites are still the way that a company or an organization expresses their brands, their personality. Like you go to an AI chatbot and you don't get a sense of their identity, like, their brands. Like, you don't get a feeling of their values and principles. But if you go to a website, you can actually get some of these things. And I think that's really important because I think people want to feel like, who do I do business with, or what is this organization all about? So I don't think websites will ever go away. But the amount of traffic to websites might change. And I think that's probably okay. And sometimes people panic about it, but you could say the same thing about mobile apps and all kinds of things that happened in the past. So, yeah.
I guess, I don't know how to put this, but I guess, what's your sort of stance on the AI bubble theory?
Oh, well, I think there's
Is
a
it
real
a bubble?
bubble.
Is it, yeah?
Yeah, I think there's a huge bubble, but I would split it into the technology bubble and the commercial or financial bubble. And I think this is very much in my mind like the web bubble, back in 2000. The bubble burst and all these companies went bankrupt, but at the same time the web didn't die, right? So the web continued to mature and get better, and I feel the same way. I think AI as a technology is here to stay. It's never going to go away. But the bubble could be the crazy valuations that some of the startups are getting, and some of the crazy spending that some of these startups are doing. So I fully expect that bubble to burst at some point. And I think it will get pretty rough. But I do think AI as a technology will continue to get better, and it's never going to go away. I think it's just too impactful to go away. So very similar to the web bubble.
All right, that's it for the AI
All
questions. So Drupal was built as kind of a monolithic CMS and has been weathering shifts from decoupled and frameworks and well, now AI obviously, but that's not what the question's about. What do you think Drupal's core advantages are that have allowed it to kind of stay relevant through these evolutions?
I would actually say the community. I think people forget this, but Drupal is almost 25 years old. And 25 years old is pretty old for any technology. And so like when I started Drupal, just to put it in perspective, Google was still a very small private company. Almost nobody used Google. People did not have cell phones. Yeah, that's strange to say. And so, and because there was no cell phones, by the way, there was no mobile web. There was no social web, all of these things. So Drupal kind of survived all of these phases where the mobile web was a huge thing, the social web or Web 2.0 was a huge thing. And we kind of reinvented ourselves multiple times. And the reason we were able to reinvent ourselves multiple times is because of the community and because of the values and the principles that we have. Like, we're not afraid of it, I would say. And we tend to roll up our sleeves to go do the work. So I think that's probably the number one thing for me. And of course, I think our architecture helps too. Like, even though we're a monolith, we are very modular too. And we have really an architecture of participation and where people can go do things. And people can go do things on the edges that then slowly become like sort of mainstream. And like we have a very interesting innovation model that is enabled by the extremely modular architecture that we have. So.
Well, I guess this is a bit of an unfair question, having just said it's 25 years old, but someone wants to know, if you were starting Drupal from scratch today, which architectural pieces would you keep, and which would you rethink?
Yeah, good question, actually. I would keep the structured content modeling. Would everybody agree with that? Yeah. All right, we're keeping it. I would rethink our theming layer. Would everybody agree with that? Yeah, all right, we're doing it. And actually, Drupal Canvas is starting to change that. You know what, actually, and so I kind of already alluded to this when I talked about this previously, but one of the biggest mistakes I feel like I made is that I built Drupal for developers for so long. And then I had to spend like 15 years of my Drupal career trying to convince people we need to like make Drupal easier to use and it needs to look better.
We're still working on that, by the way.
It's like, we're not done. And it's like, I feel like that's because, you know, these early days and the roots of like how Drupal started and who Drupal was for. And so one of the things I would do if I were to start again is to immediately focus on sort of the non-technical end user, you know? And I'm not saying I would forget about the developer persona, but I would rebalance that.
We're seeing renewed interest in open source, especially in Europe, as a response to sort of some of the global political changes, and governments are seeking more flexibility and independence. What strategic advantages does open source offer?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, like, just to be blunt, I think a lot of countries in the world are now waking up and they're feeling like, wow, we're too reliant on American software, just to, you know, put it straight. And like, you know, the current administration threatening with tariffs and all of these things, and you know, it's very tense time. And so a lot of governments around the world are like, well, maybe we should rethink how dependent we are on other nations broadly, but you know, frankly, the US probably specifically right now. And so it has led to this wave of people being interested in digital sovereignty. And like everywhere I go outside of the US, it's kind of a big topic. Like in Europe, it's a huge topic. And I think open source is super uniquely qualified to help with this. And so honestly, it's like super exciting because like open source could make this another big jump by being the go-to solution for those kinds of projects. So there's a couple of interesting things. Like in Europe, there's like RFPs that go around right now, often from governments, but not always. And they basically say things like, hey, this is like a 3 or 5 year project. And at the end of the project, you need to transfer all of the source code and the data to us. You know, and like for us as open source, it's easy. Like, sure, Like it's the default. But like for proprietary software companies, it's not that easy for them to say, all right, after 5 years, we will give you all of our source code and all of your data. And so it basically qualifies out a lot of proprietary software companies from actually winning business. And so I think it's actually something we need to talk more about and promote more. And yeah, because I will tell you, like, it's another maybe side note, and just to talk about AI for 1 minute. But like, AI is a good example because all of the AI firms are basically American, like pretty much. And Europe said, well, it's a problem. And so France, they actually started an AI company, Mistral. Maybe you've heard of it. But it's kind of sad. And actually, I should say, France, they had this problem before where they basically felt like they were too reliant on American aviation technology, like Boeing. And so they said, we're going to start another airline company or another airplane building company. And they started the name Airbus. And so Airbus was started in France to try and have a non-American alternative. And we're very successful with it. Like, obviously, today, it's like a huge company. And so they tried to do the same with Mistral. And so they funded it. Like, I think they put in a couple $2 billion. And the sad part is, like, within months, they had to go to all of these American technology companies because they said, oh, we have all this funding, but we need to go buy chips from NVIDIA. We need to go buy these things from Microsoft. And so, like, they're a successful company, but this original vision completely fell flat on its face because they're just super dependent still on American technology. But we don't have that problem with open source and Drupal, which is kind of cool, I think. Or governments can literally just adopt Drupal without being dependent on any company. And yeah, I think it could be kind of the next big leapfrog in open source. But we need to make sure we're at the table. We need to make sure that that is understood. So.
You mentioned, though, that it's mostly outside of the US that you get these concerns about data sovereignty. Is that sounds interesting to me. I think, so I'm based in Australia, and we have a similar problem where there aren't that many onshore companies, especially SaaS companies. But so do you find in the US that because is it just a data retention thing, and they're not necessarily worried as much about being sort of beholden to a company, or?
Well, I think it's because a lot of the technology companies are US based. I mean, imagine if you are a non-US government and you wake up one day and the political powers have basically said you can no longer use AWS, you can no longer use Microsoft, you can no longer use whatever. Like, it would create major, I mean, that's like I don't know, Belgium would basically fail to function. And I imagine a lot of other companies would literally fail to function. Like, if governments lose access to all their Microsoft products, like, what are they going to do? Like, it's not so pretty, I think. And that's just Microsoft, but like, there's many others. But people in the US don't have that problem, They have access, like, they use American
software. They might, I don't know.
I don't know, I don't think it's the same equation, I guess. Yeah, so, I don't know. So, yeah.
You speak with Drupal users of all sizes all across the globe. Do you notice any distinct regional patterns? I mean, you sort of discussed just now about data sovereignty being somewhat of a regional concern, but are there any other areas where you feel like it differs between regions?
Yeah, sometimes I would say the maturity level is different. Like, I would, like, they're less far along in their Drupal journey. I mean, another key difference, and I'm sure it will come up, is just like localization and translation needs. Very different. And like Drupal Canvas, just to put it out there, right now it's just, it's not multilingual yet. And obviously, just so you know, it's a very high priority for us, and we're going to work on this. Go talk to Laurie and others, but like, there's Laurie. He will make sure it happens.
Yes, if you're interested in Drupal Canvas translations, please see Laurie throughout the conference.
Yeah. But like, that would be a great example. Like, many people in the world obviously need more than English. And so that is just one example of a big pattern. And I've traveled in Asia quite a bit as well. And I think one of the biggest things that I see is like just the availability of documentation in the local language, you know, in this case Japanese, but also the availability of key information, like important news, you know, making that available in the local language, having solid translation of the UI that they can download and install. And sometimes these things are missing. And like, I remember being in China a while ago, and they were all like communicating on WeChat, first of all. They're not actually they're not coming to Drupal.org, or rarely. They don't really participate in Slack because of language barriers. So they create their own community. And every time I go to these places, I feel like, wow, if only there was like a few really good Drupal books. And by the way, in Japan, there are some really good Drupal books. I mean, I can't read Japanese, but I know I have a few. So, you know, that's great. But like sometimes I think about like relatively small investments, like writing a really good book in Chinese. I think of it as a relatively small investment. Could unlock so much, you know? And I think that is probably the biggest thing that I see in my international travels, is just how hard it is for some communities to be part of sort of this English-centric core that we have, you know? So, yeah.
All right, this is the last question.
All right.
Looking 3 to 5 years out, what's your vision for Drupal? And I guess, how do we succeed, and how do we sort of stay at the top of the pile?
That's like a 60-minute question. Are we ready for that?
You have 4 minutes.
All right. I don't know. I would say, I tried to summarize it in the Dries note, but like, if I could distill it down to one thing, it's like everything that I'm trying to help with right now is all about growth. And so like I think of the marketing efforts we're focused on, it's about growing Drupal. Drupal Canvas, it's about growing Drupal. Site templates and marketplace, it's about growing Drupal. And then AI is also about growing Drupal and staying relevant at the same time. But so I guess if we're successful in 5 years, I would say we have bent the curve, if that makes sense. Like we have re-accelerated Drupal. We've re-accelerated the adoption of Drupal. We have an influx of new people, or maybe people that once used Drupal have left Drupal, they're coming back to Drupal. And we can see that based on the number of installations that we have, but also on the number of contributors, and ideally also on the number of people in leadership roles, and the amount of new talent in leadership roles in the Drupal project as well. So that is how I hope to measure success in 5 years.
You still have 2 minutes?
I do? You have another question? Yeah, so I think we're making the right moves. And I think the early indicators are looking good. And I showed this in one of the slides in the Dries note as well, but like the innovation is back, you know, and it's really exciting. If you look at the charts, we have more people contributing to Drupal than ever, especially to strategic initiatives. And I think of that as an early indicator. You know, usually with software like everything starts with the software being what people want. Like you have to have great software, or you can just market your way to success, or it's not easy or not sustainable. So the fact that the innovation is back, I think is pretty exciting, and if we can keep it up, then I think great things will happen.
I agree. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.